And now, live from the studios of Freedom's Phoenix, Ernest Hancock.
Yeah, we're back here on Declare Your Independence. And me, Ernest Hancock, making sure that we have the discussion that is always on the tip of a whole bunch of people, certainly during election season. Oh, are you, not if you're a believer enough. You're a believer of the wrong religion. You're not allowed. So I'm just, now think about it. For the first time, I think that we have, of course, Christian candidates. You got, Dr. Paul. You got Huckabee, man. He's, Christian. Then you have Mitt Romney, Republican, Mormon. Then you have the Democratic incumbent. I don't know what he is. Well, they say he's Muslim, but whatever. I don't care. So this is an important issue to a lot of people. And of course, I always got to ask the question, am I allowed not to care? I just don't care. I want to know what you're advocating the force of government for. And certainly you would think, certainly in our culture, the government was there to protect us from the force that would be imposed on us by even the church. In fact, that's kind of what Thomas Jefferson was going on about. And one thing, there are laws that Dick brings up, and I think it is one of the benefits of his book, that there are laws against blasphemy. Well, we got to define that. So he's taken that, and he's written a book to where you go to trial, and you're not going to make the argument that, well, it's First Amendment, Constitution protects me from you guys using force against me, doing whatever, and dismiss. He goes, no, I'm not going to ask for a dismissal motion. Let's go. You want to do this blasphemy thing? Let's go ahead and do it, because then you got to define God. Okay, all right. So that's where we're at in the book. And there was a point off there you made about Thomas Jefferson having a unique claim to fame. What is that?
Well, all of the other presidents, in one way or another, have made some sort of a proclamation for prayer. Thomas Jefferson refused to do that. He's the one who's most famous for saying in the letter to a priest, or I guess it was a pastor, but to me they're all priests. He was the one who was most famous for saying that we must have a wall of separation between church and state. When he was the president and he was requested to make a proclamation for one of these days of prayer, he declined, and he said, no, this is a violation of the United States Constitution. I will not do it.
And why only him? I mean, he didn't set a good precedent, or the church really in charge of the government and the people? And I mean, is this kind of the point you're making in your book?
Well, it's sort of the point that I'm making in the book, because even in today's world, you have a number of countries where if you belong to the wrong religion, you're dead. Literally, not figuratively. We still have stonings. I describe one in my book. They still have stonings done today in this world in the 21st century, but the Christians did that too. You go back 400 or 500 years ago, and the stonings were identically the same, and in the Bible, of course, they were the same. That's where the phrase came. He is without guilt should cast the first stone. Jesus.
And he goes, I hate when you do that, Mom. Anyway, I'm wanting to follow the logic through in the book. We have a young man that's accused of one of these crimes on the books in some states, saying you're guilty of blasphemy. And he goes, all right, rock and roll, man. It seems like something libertarian activists might want to even, stage or do. Yeah, come on, arrest me. Go ahead. I dare you. Yeah, start, screaming, blasphemous stuff at some prosecutor that's, wanting to get elected or something. I mean, you never know. These things come up. And if it's on the books, sooner or later, they're either going to be taken off or somebody's going to make a name for himself, just like you got pastors out there wanting to burn Korans and so on. There's always somebody out there who want to be famous. So he goes to court and he says, I'm not taking a dismissal. I wanted to try this. What is it that he's challenging, and how does it, without giving away everything, how do you use that to make your arguments in the book?
Well, his challenge is you cannot be convicted of a crime if you can't define what it is that you've done. Although in today's world, we find literally hundreds of thousands of people are convicted of crimes that are very, very oblique, that you can hardly tell what they are. Antitrust laws are a good example of that. So he's really challenging this on the, you might call it a pure concept of criminal law, that you cannot convict somebody of something that you cannot understand. So he's saying first to the jury, give me an intelligible definition of what it is I'm supposed to have blasphemed. That's number one. And the second question, there are two questions that go to the jury. That's one. But even if the jury finds that, yes, there is it's properly defined in the statute, because the statute that I use in the book as a city ordinance actually is almost word for word what it is in Massachusetts today. The next question is the fact that I said I don't believe blasphemy?
I don't know. Is it?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Oh!
Only the jury can answer that question.
Yeah, you got to get the book. Okay. I can see where you could use this to make the arguments, but I'm still wondering, where do you think we're going? Are we having a society? Because I've seen this in Generation Next. The young, it's not an important issue. Religion, race, gender, even age. It just, if you're on Facebook, if you're talking about different concepts, these things rarely, if ever, even come up, to my great satisfaction. It's just so not part of the discussion. They don't care.
Well, since I'm an old guy, that's particularly important that they no longer discriminate as much against old guys and keep. Yeah, hardly ever.
Yeah, I'm at the top of the hill, too.
I don't get called an old geezer anymore. Of course, there aren't any young geezers, but I don't get called a geezer as much anymore as I used to, even 10 years ago.
Because it's more based on a philosophical basis for which they have relationships. You know, it's how on the internet, it has so much more than I remember being 15, 20 years ago, to where people are looking at things that I think are much more important. And they're able to do that because you're able to go mind to mind instead of having somebody else, the media, the church, the state, categorize you in some group. But I'm seeing that as people have moved away from being categorized as a particular religion or even just being a believer at all, that more and more it's the atheist that are coming out going, no, we want you solidified into our number.
I disagree with that completely. I think what you're seeing is, as time has gone on, more atheists are coming out of the closet, just as more gays came out of the closet in the last, say, 20, 30 years.
That's a good parallel. It was like, you got to be outed. You know, I mean, you got to be on the list. You got to profess it. It's got to be on your collar. You got, used to be you had the little fish lapel. I'm a Christian. Then no. Now you got to have the little rainbow, and now you got to have the little Darwin fish. I mean, it's like you got to wear your fish.
No, that's not at all what the atheists are saying. Is they're of those that I've spoken with, so I can't give you.
I was like everyone I spoken.
And they'll come out and they say, look, for many years, I couldn't even admit that I was an atheist. If I had admitted I was an atheist, I couldn't join the Boy Scouts. I couldn't join Kiwanis. I couldn't join any of these things. So I just kept my mouth shut and I joined them. Now more and more people are saying, no, I'm actually going to stand up for what I believe, which means I can't join the Boy Scouts. I can't join Rotary. I can't join all these clubs that all the time have God in it. I can't say the Pledge of Allegiance because since 1954 it had under God in it. I can't do a number of these things, and that's what the atheists are saying. They're saying, leave us alone. We don't want to be discriminated against. We're not saying that you should become an atheist because we'll say that reality is the true court of appeal.
Okay. Let's talk about the pledge. I can't say the pledge because it pledges to the state. I mean, I'm way past this God thing, So I'm wondering if it's a competition. Is that what's really going on? Who rules your brain? Well, I think the generation next is already freeing themselves, and I'm glad we're having this conversation just for the grins and giggles, and we'll have some more when we come back in just a little bit.